wish I'd have had decent careers advice. I might have ended up with a proper job. Steve Stewart, Chief Executive of Coventry and Warwickshire and Solihull Partnership, which delivers information, advice and guidance for 13 to 19-year-olds in Coventry and Warwickshire, joins us in the studio. Steve, morning.
Morning, Shane.
You might have had a smaller job title if you'd have had better careers advice, perhaps. You never know.
Well, there's an old joke about why did you become a careers officer, Steve? And was it because you couldn't think of anything better to do, you know?
Do you ever advise people to become a careers officer?
Actually, you'd be amazed how many people, when they get some advice, they turn around and say, I want your job.
Yeah. It always looks better for the other side, doesn't it?
It's a real Yossa Hughes, you know?
Careers advice, it's quite an interesting and quite an emotive subject. I mean, my recollection of careers advice, I don't remember what I was advised to do, but I remember it being rubbish. And for a long time, I think a lot of people thought it was. Has it got any better in real terms?
Well, I think it was really picking up, and it was becoming more and more important, because when you've got in the old days, many of your listeners were just saying there, you know, there were jobs around. And so, you know, there was ways in which people could find their own careers by going and trying this out, then trying that out, and hey, you suddenly realise the thing you started with at first was probably the best thing. These days, it's incredibly difficult to get the right job that you really want, and also the labour market changes. In the old days, there were big companies with big HR sections. 80% of Coventry and Warwickshire 16-year-olds are going to work in small and medium-sized companies, or going to work for themselves. That's the way the labour market's changing. And that's why, now more than ever, you need the very best advice, information you can get about how you can make your own career path work for you.
Can we be clear about what we're talking about then? Is it careers advice, or is it jobs advice? Because you were mixing what you were saying there, weren't you, about about stuffing people into a factory or a big car factory or whatever is not a careers advice, is it?
Well, the two are very linked, right? I mean, let me give you an example. If you're a 16-year-old at school, you're faced with, right, what am I going to do next? Am I going to go and get an apprenticeship? If I am, which one? Am I going to go to college? If I do, which courses are going to be? What's the right kind of learning style for me? If I stay on and do my A-levels, where's that going to take me? You know, am I going to get a job at the end of my A-levels, or would have been better off doing an apprenticeship? So there's all this kind of options and routes that's got to be sorted out. More complicated now than ever before. And then secondly, ultimately, what is it I want to do? And yes, you know, in 10 years' time, there'll be jobs that we haven't even thought of. Nobody will even dream that we're going to exist. But at the same time, you can get the kind of messages around, I want to be doing something scientific, I want to be doing something that involves working with people, I want to be doing something which involves the use of numbers, etc., etc. And around that, you kind of get the areas that you're interested in and what's the best route for me.
Is there a pressure on you? I don't know if you heard, we talked to City and Guilds earlier on the show this morning. They were talking about skillionaires. These are people who, have got vocational qualifications rather than academic qualifications. Is there a pressure on you, either from the school, because they're being targeted by this, or from parents because they want the best, to shoehorn as many people into university as you possibly can? Are you finding that now?
Well, there's pressure not just for that, but pressure also to actually, from various institutions who get paid by how many people they have. So they're all wanting to say, make sure they come to me, Steve, right. You know? And the big word in the careers game is this word impartiality, making sure that actually the advice you give isn't biased, isn't in favour of any particular group. It's actually the best advice for the particular individual. And there isn't a year goes by that I don't end up having a bit of a firm conversation with, a head teacher or a college principal who says to me, Steve, I don't really feel they understand the real value of my sixth form. And that's because, hey, we told them about the other options they can do, and that's, when they do, that's when we know we're doing the right job.
Do you have a worry now that because of the way things are being cut and because resources are tight, that, they're not going to be there? Careers advisors, whether they're good or bad now, they're just not going to be there, are they?
I do have a worry, and this is happening up and down the land. We're experiencing cuts. In the city, it's manageable, but it's still 20%. In the county, it's a real slash in our services, and it doesn't make economic sense. And let me share with you why. Now more than ever is a time when we need our young people to have aspiration and desire to want to do the best they possibly can. We don't want them doing things that nobody wants them to do. We want them actually to feel they can do things. Secondly, it's just pure economics. Every time somebody goes on a course or somebody starts something that isn't right, it costs us all a lot of money, because you all have to pay for it all over again. And the third reason is simply, even in the hard times, there's still skill shortages, and there are still areas where we are desperately keen to have people training and skilling themselves. And if we haven't got the proper advice about where to go and where these places are, we'll end up with more skill shortages. So the economics don't add up. Never mind the human cost.
I wish it had been my career as teacher. I might not be sat here. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I'm not sure. Steve, good to talk to you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks ever so much.
Steve Stewart there, Chief Executive of Coventry and Warwickshire and Solihull Partnership, which delivers information, advice and guidance for 13 to 19-year-olds in Coventry and Warwickshire.
BBC Coventry and Warwickshire.